Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's summit. My name is Scarlett. I'm a customer success manager here at UpGuard. Really excited to welcome you to this panel discussion. We have today with us Neil Cameron of Peoplecare, Shahn Harris of Air New Zealand, and Andrew Bullen of St John WA Ambulance Group. Bit of background here. More than ever, security teams are met with increasing demands, needing to do more with less, and the threat landscape is constantly transforming. Risk from third parties in particular keeps growing. I think this has sort of been pushed by some really large or high-profile data breaches in recent times. So today we are going to be picking the brains of our security panelists to learn how they have overcome these challenges, any opportunities they've found along the way to scale their third-party risk management programs effectively, with some time for audience questions at the end. So to our panelists, great to have you here. Thank you for your time. Before we kick off with the questions, it would be great to hear a little bit about you and your professional backgrounds. So I will start off with Shahn today.
Thanks, Gar. Hey, I'm Shahn Harris. I am Cyber Consultancy Chapter Lead for Air New Zealand. I've been with Air New Zealand for 5 years, and prior to that, I worked primarily in New Zealand in the finance industry.
Thank you, Shahn. I'll jump over to Andrew and then finish up with Neil.
Thanks for having me, Scar, and hello, everyone. My name's Andrew Bullen. I currently work for the St John Ambulance Group in WA. I've been here for around 6 months in September last year. I've been in cyber for around 13 years, about 12 of that in financial services and a bit of a tech background before that.
Brilliant. Neil.
Good afternoon, Scar, and everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Neil Cameron. I am the Head of Information Security and Strategic Sourcing here at Peoplecare. I've been with Peoplecare for just over a year now. Prior to that, a variety of different roles. I've been in the information security arena for some 25 plus years. So a lot of experience in the landscape, but very excited to be here, and hopefully I'll be able to provide some valuable information.
I'm sure you will. There's a lot of collective knowledge in this virtual room today. Cool. So the first question I have here for you guys is just whether you can give us a bit of background on your current TPRM processes. So, how large is your vendor pool? How do you perform your risk assessments? What does that process look like for you? Maybe jump to Neil.
Thanks, Scott. So as I mentioned, I've been at Peoplecare for just over a year now. When I arrived, I already had the pleasure of UpGuard being a platform within our organization that was being used for the existing TPRM process. Having arrived, as I say, a year ago, and Peoplecare, for those that don't know, are a private health insurer and are regulated via APRA. And so third-party risk management is a very key area that is focused on the compliance regime. So when I arrived, we worked through the current service, and I have to say, kudos to UpGuard, and I'm not just saying it for this reason. It's just the fact that the platform was probably too much for what we needed, and so we ended up working with UpGuard around reshaping it and getting it right for our organization. And we currently have over 200 partners, and for such a small organization, that's huge. So as a result of that, Scar, we decided to revamp our tiering process and simplify. So one of my biggest challenges, I think, in my career is every organization I've walked into, there is some reason that us technical folk like to make things as complicated as possible. And I know that is a blanket statement, but this organization's not alone. And so what I wanted to do starting off was to restructure our tiering model to ensure that we focused our resources and our energy on critical partners versus every partner. So we've simplified our tiering model. We've got 4 simple tiering criteria, 1 for material, 2 for data that resides in our partners' ecosystem. 3, if we've got a partner accessing our confidential or very sensitive information here within our realm. And 4 is a catch-all bucket, which we have to have, of course. That, in short, is our third-party risk management sort of framework. Yes, looking forward to bettering it as we continue on our roadmap, Scott. Hopefully that provides you with initial info.
Yes, no, it does. I think, yeah, simplifying the tiering structure is something that I'm hearing a little bit more about recently, and things can be overcomplicated in that sense. Jump over to Shahn and then to Andrew, and obviously you guys jump in if you have thoughts along the way.
Thanks, Gar. So I guess we've been on a bit of a journey as, given I joined Air New Zealand pre-pandemic, the processes that were operating then were fit for purpose from a point of view of what was going on at that time. But then during the pandemic and just a change to staff and vendors and the way where the world was, we kind of reshaped it because it was, you know, your typical heavy enterprise third-party risk assessment process. But given kind of resource constraints, time constraints, and what was going on at the time, we kind of reshaped it to cater for the different parts of the airline. So with my team, we're not just focused on cyber, let's say for enterprise. My team covers everything from aircraft to airports to mobile app to marketing and everything in between, alongside supporting the enterprise and cloud and everything. So one risk assessment process wasn't fit for all. So we've been gradually working through refining our processes, so we give everything the right amount of attention, so we can concentrate on critical vendors and you know, let the business make business decisions and still move fast without the need for, you know, can you please fill out a questionnaire or spend time with my team, unless you are, you know, a critical digital vendor or something that's critical to the business to operate. So that's been a bit of a journey, and with kind of fluctuating resources, where at one stage the consultancy team was 3 people and now we're up to 9, so we're able to better support the business, having to manage that and all the different compliance areas that come along with being an airline, as you don't just have you know, finance world. APRA is a great standard to look for your partners, but when you're dealing with engineering and maintenance, they don't have any specific cyber clauses. You've got OEM aircraft standards and all sorts of things that you come across that don't fit the normal cyber risk assessment process. So yeah, it's still a journey, and it continues to be so.
Yep, makes sense. Andrew, I'll pass to you now.
I'm in a bit of a unique position among the panelists here in that my tenure at my organisation is not very long. I've been with St John Ambulance for around 6 months. I did previously spend the last 5 years standing up and evolving a third-party risk program at a regulated entity in the health insurance sector. So I've got my experience from the past entity, and what we're currently building at St John looks very similar. Our vendor pool is quite large. Being a quite distributed not-for-profit organisation, we're around 4,000 vendors. Obviously, there's only a subsection of those you actually care about for cyber risk. I'm a big fan of a funnel-style process. We look at some simple questions we can ask the business about their vendors, like is there information involved? Are they supplying an IT service? Or is this involved in any way with any critical business services that we operate? If the answer is to no to all of those things, there may not be an inherent cyber risk there, and we let them move ahead. If the answer is yes, we then have subsequent questions, which are probably not dissimilar, but a little bit different to what Neil described his approach. We have a tiering system, which is aligned back to a risk management framework. That's all algorithmic on our side. We use a blend of the per record value for a breach. So if you have 300 records and $300 a record for a breach, what does that work out to be, and how does that fit within your financial appetite on your risk management framework? augmented with potential IT and critical service impacts as well. That spits out a tiered risk rating, and we use that to prioritize and drive the cadence of reassessment for all of our vendors.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how everyone has slightly different approaches, but I am hearing, I guess, a theme of really targeting your risk assessments to, what kind of organization it is. You're not going to send an ISO questionnaire to the place that, you get your catering from, for example. So, yeah, thank you all for giving us a bit of background there. I'm going to move into some challenges when scaling your TPRM program. What are some challenges that you have faced? How have you overcome these setbacks? And I think one thing I'd really like to know have those challenges highlighted any bigger picture problems? Jump to Andrew.
Yep, sure. So scale can mean many things, whether it's you're expanding your third-party risk management program or there's sudden business demand that pops out of nowhere. So the funnel approach I mentioned before is very helpful in kind of narrowing down who you need to address and putting them in some kind of prioritization order. But then there is also how you conduct the assessments. We lean quite heavily on independent assurance like ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2 reports. We also look to leverage various different hooks into different processes the business might run. So one core challenge we have is all the different ways a vendor might interact with the business. You have a core procurement process, which is typically very financial focused based on minimum spend. And they're fairly good at looking at different risk domains, whether it's cyber, privacy, modern slavery, anything else. Then you might have a lightweight procure to pay style process, credit card purchases, people buying products and expensing them, and then you have free tier services. And as you look at an expanding collective of all the services your business uses, there's a lot of volume in there that needs to be assessed and addressed.
Yeah, the volume is a pain point that we hear often, and also risk assessment fatigue. Neil, have you had any experience any of that, or any major challenges you'd like to call out?
Yeah, I mean, a number of challenges similar to the ones that Andrew's mentioned. I suppose I touched on it earlier, Scar, around the fact that we had an all singing, all dancing, or what I would call Rolls Royce for operating third-party management, but we didn't have arguably the right resourcing, the right destination mapped out, because of course you can operate many different paths to get to the destination that you're seeking to reach. As a regulated organization, though, we have to be very, very careful around understanding what our residual risk is with each of our partners. And so I touched on the fact that we used to operate a different tiering model. But I've often asked the question in many organizations is, what's important to you? What information needs protecting and why? And I think I've certainly experienced in my career, I've walked into organizations that don't really have many regulatory needs, but goodness me, they have got an all singing, all dancing Rolls Royce of a security machine. And good for them, but at the same token, wow, not a cheap exercise to undertake when you want a sort of all singing, all dancing, very mature security landscape. So that's one of my challenges, is that the organization perhaps was not as mature as perhaps they would like to have been. So again, we've looked at the strategic piece, and we look at both strategic and tactical. So tactical I refer to as what is our BAU? What do we need to do? What do we continue to do? And then strategically looking around improvements, what are the challenges? And so one of those challenges was resources. Yeah, and so what we're starting to tackle on that front is that we have a number of programs where we're starting to have feelers into all of the educational realms. Yeah, and one of my asks and you can ask my team independently, but the first premise for any person in my team is enthusiasm. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone with a vendor risk management certification. I'm not looking for a CISP. I'm not looking for all of the above, which might be a contentious statement in today's world, because there are other organizations that will probably sooner go down that avenue, and good for them. But I found that I can train resources internally because of being in the industry for such a long time, and it's a pleasure for me, and I find that really helpful. And so training resources internally through enthusiasm, they then become qualified. Then they can go on their certification avenue if that's something that, you know, is appealing to them. So that also overcomes a challenge around looking for the right resource. I think if we're too focused on that, people will start to talk about the fact that we have a massive resourcing skill set shortage across not only Australia, but across the whole world. So again, trying to think outside of the box a bit to manage those challenges. And above all, build a very important partnership regime. So I found that when liaising with our partners, you know, one of my asks is, let's talk pragmatically, let's talk from a risk perspective, and let's treat you know, the relevant partnerships with respect, you know, because we're all under different challenges. And so far, touch wood, things seem to be moving in the right direction, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a question of mine coming up, is that companies have been faced with budget cuts recently and need to do more with less. And that's a really unique, creative way, I guess, of perhaps dealing with those challenges. I will ask that in a second, though. But Shahn, did you have anything that you wanted to add there to the challenges that you faced and you know, things that you have discovered throughout that process?
Yeah, I guess some of the challenges we've come across is internal communication, because business gets used to doing business in a certain way. So if you adjust your the assessment method or process, or potentially as part of your third-party uplift, you're adding additional contracts because you've got that view now of exactly what the vendor is providing, and you create clauses fit for purpose, whereas before there was kind of, you know, blanket template, go over here and ensure every contract has it. When contracts come up for renewal and you're performing a fresh vendor assessment, because maybe it's been a 9-year relationship and people have said, hey, let's renew terms and agreements as happens, and you perform an assessment, people will still refer months after implementing any new process, despite comms chain, you know, communications, all of the workshops, all of the communication is that they still refer back to the old the old way, because there's at times there's ways to not game the system, but for the business to move things forward a bit faster, because they know the process. And this has happened to me throughout my career. But once you can change and educate them on the process, and kind of leaning into what Neil mentioned about training and training staff, it's more a case of showing, hey, here's the tools, here's the process. We can provide it to not cyber professionals. You could be, you know, an architect. You could be a project manager, a BA, and say, hey, look, when you hit the bit where you know you're going to be onboarding a new vendor or adjusting a contract, here's the heads up. If you can help us get ahead and by providing this information and kicking this off, or ensuring that in contracts these are discussed, that helps them to understand and move faster, so they don't hit you and go, oh, here's a new process, we didn't know about that, we were scheduled to go live in 2 to 3 weeks, you know, that typical problem. But yeah, so once again, right sizing the process and making it relevant to the people, to your staff who are undertaking the work is a massive challenge. But once you get it to the stage where it's understood, it unlocks a lot of value and frees people up and makes the business go faster, from my experience.
Yeah, I think education is obviously key to reducing incidents relating to human error, and really getting people on board, engaged with the process like they're a part of it, because they are. Cool. All right. The next question I have here is about those budget cuts. Everybody has, it's what we're hearing in the community, that people have been faced with those budget cuts. Neil, you did mention about sort of re-looking at how capacity is how you hire, I guess, and who you hire. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it goes back to how I started my career, Scar. So, all the way back in the 90s, I'm afraid to say, I was asked as a technologist, similar to Andrew. I come from a very, very technical background, which has slowly but morphed into more sort of managerial leadership strategy. When I was starting out, one of the challenges was, what does security look like? We don't know what security is, right? So I had to then sort of embark on a brand new landscape in the 90s, looking at security as a whole. People have asked me, what is the difference from 30 years ago or 25 years ago? And the biggest difference to me, technology, yes, of course, has evolved, but technology has evolved to give us visibility. The same activities that take place today, rest assured, took place in the 90s. But we didn't use the ecosystems to store highly sensitive data back then. There was sort of, a different classification of data per se. So how have things changed? Well, we now have more visibility, and I often have the challenge thrown at me going, Neil, we need to know everything. And then I go and present all the visibility. But of course, presenting visibility means suddenly we've got more risks, we've got more challenges, we need more work being done, and so on and so on. So in short, my challenge around resourcing is helping and educating the board and the executive by stating that the world is not falling down, the risk is commensurate within our appetite, but at the same token, ensuring we have the visibility to actually tackle any challenges from a resourcing or process perspective. And we are proactive rather than reactive. And I suppose coupling with all that together, that has allowed us to start looking at the wider resourcing pool, not just security professionals.
Yeah,
hopefully that
makes sense.
provides a little bit of insight.
It does.
But yeah, this
Thank
is close to my heart, this one, because I think we're all very light from a team perspective. So it's coming up with unique ways, I think, to deliver a quality outcome. And for us at PeopleCare, it's all about our membership. So making sure that I can go to all of our membership to state that we have the necessary assurances and we're doing right by you, naturally will flow on and give people comfort in today's challenging world.
Thank you. We do have a question from the audience. I know that we have that time at the end, but this is sort of relating to what we are discussing right now, which is about the budget cuts. Open-ended question: how do you go about combating budget cuts to cybersecurity at your organisation, where a budget cut could lead to an attack or breach? Great question.
Do you want me to tackle that one? Because literally I have those every day, right? And so my board, whilst they are very, very, very supportive in providing the team and the organization with the necessary funding to do what we need to do, yes, budget cuts all the time. Now, how I combat budget cuts is by removing resource A, or by removing asset A, or by removing whatever that component is, your risk profile is going to change. And it's about how you articulate the risk back to the board or the executive, who are the responsible parties for providing you with the funds to deliver a posture that's within your organization's risk appetite. So in short, what do? I say, well, you can't do this, so something else has got to give, right? And really, I put that to the board to make the educated decision thereafter. Now, if the boards turn around and say, well, I'm terribly sorry, Neil, we can still only afford 2 resources for you for that realm. Okay, as long as the company is accepting the possible risk and the likelihood and consequence of something happening, then we as security professionals have done our job. But unfortunately, I've also been in the case where we've had security incidents as a result. And so also that also educates the board and the executive. Unfortunately, I'm not condoning that anybody goes through a full-blown breach, by the way. But it's certainly provides, again, that education, because I think a lot of organizations may not have been through a cyber event and therefore can't really put hand on heart to say how they truly feel. And I would also not wish that on anybody, having gone through that myself. So hopefully that answers the question, but I think it's a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
And if controls are removed, your risk appetite will change.
Yep. Andrew, might jump to you next. We do have another question for you, Neil, after this, but I'll give Andrew a little minute to respond to this one too, the previous question.
Look, I absolutely agree with everything that Neil's just said around the risk management approach to communicating with the senior leadership and with the board around the impacts of what a cut may mean, or maybe not being able to expand to the extent that we can. Everyone on this call and practically every cyber professional and leadership professional is going to be faced with not having enough resource, not having enough budget to get done what they believe needs to get done. And it is simply a balancing act. When budget cuts are made, or when the choice is made not to increase budget for whatever reason, that's often a risk-based approach at the top level without understanding the detail there. You're dialing down one dial and it dials up another dial, and that's really important to communicate. There is maybe a misconception that constraints like this are necessarily a bad thing, that they're certainly uncomfortable, but constraints is where you can get creative. I like Neil's approach there. We talked about transitioning people from other roles across the organization, looking at entry-level professionals that can be developed into a role. And that's a practice that I've supported quite heavily in the past. I think it's a good approach to addressing raising rates for cyber professionals and for consultancies, and lots of people looking for that to transition into the industry as well.
Yeah, so visibility to management and the board, and also education of your employees with the opportunity for those entry-level roles to sort of jump into the security thing, because it can be a bit of a difficult industry to get into if you don't know where to start. Shahn, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got a very simplistic view, and that's
Sure.
business is gonna business, right? So
yeah.
it's a value, and if we're being brutally honest, it's across any organization. It's profit or value, or what do we need to keep the business running. So when faced with those challenges, kind of across my career, I always tie it back to what's the value it's providing to the business. If it's a request that helps a cornerstone project going faster, are you properly communicating that? Is it going to affect your compliance regime? It's going to open up your risk appetite, because it's not going to match your risk appetite because maybe implementation of these controls on something could potentially cause an issue. It's all about kind of assessing, okay, what is this actually going to change? What's it going to slow down? Yes, I may not have the resources to do things, but that means here's my priority list. If you want to have the next 6 things on the priority list, I need this. If not, here's what you're going to get for the next year. It's just spinning it into risk and business risk, and communicating that up effectively, so everyone's on the same page, and whoever can make those executive decisions makes them fully informed, and then just get on with it from my point of view.
Yeah, and sort of always run the risk of if you don't say anything and then something happens, and the more visibility of information, often the better, in my opinion too. So thank you, Shahn. I will jump to Neil again, because we do have a question for you as an APRA regulated entity. When a vendor does not hold any industry certifications, SOC 2 Type 2s, for example, how do you assess that vendor? What type of artifacts, policy documents are the main focus, especially from those material providers?
Great question. This is certainly a challenge, I think, for most organizations, right? There's going to be a partner of that organization that is less mature than, say, others, but they are critical in the delivery of whatever the business process might be. So one of the most important things in my mantra, SCAR and everyone, is for those who know me in the industry, one of my hashtags is I like to enable the business to do things in a secure way. Simple as that. So what does it mean in the case of this particular question? So we have a third party or a fourth party even, and I don't want to get into the realms of CPS 230, but I'm sure that might be another flow on from this this question. But fundamentally, if an organization can't provide any assurance, so to speak, so no ISO 27001 certificate, no SOC 2, no other assurance regime, then I normally request a meeting with their relevant security team. Now, that's with the proviso that I would have advised first and foremost my executive and board of the outcome of that third party not having any security assurance documentation. But my suggestion and my path forward is to actually have that conversation with a fellow security professional. Okay, because at the end of the day, security professionals, being trained as security professionals, security comes before even the organization we serve. Yeah, going back all the ways to the ISC squared modeling and CIS modeling and all of that good stuff. So the security ethos must come first. And so by talking to security professionals in that other organization and you adopt the Chatham rules, I've often used examples where, say it was Andrew and I having a conversation. I'd say, Andrew, would you be most kind and for example, show me your policies in a private room where, you know, it's just between you and I, but I can actually put my professional career on the line by actually saying that I'm stating that I've seen these documents. I've read through these documents. I can actually, you know, hear what Andrew is telling me. And whilst they've not gone through X or Y, I'm also happy to support maybe a right to audit in 12 months' time, you know, as we continue on that journey. But with my premise being, we're a partnership. There's a reason we're doing business together. And so that soft approach about, hey, I'll share info with you, but I need that to be reciprocal, often has got me to a positive outcome. And being able to evidence then through my own assurance that I've seen document A, B, C, and D. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. I think that's a great suggestion, that softer approach. I do know that Andrew also has extensive experience in, you know, the APRA space. Do you want to jump in there too?
Yeah, I can jump in. So obviously I'm not part of a regulated entity now, but I spent the last 12 years in financial services, and CPS 234 is very close to my heart for the last few years. And CPS 230 was becoming that next thing to look at. So as far as third-party risk, we've been through at a previous organization, the tripartite assessment process, been through the auditing, had many interactions with around third-party risk. And what APRA really cares about is that you're managing your risk, that you understand what it is, you have practices to identify those risks, to manage those risks, and to treat those risks as appropriate. Where you have a high-risk vendor, I've had a number where they either don't have certification or where they have certification and they refuse to give it to you. That's happened a number of times, especially government agencies and certain large companies that are not comfortable sharing their certification for whatever reason. The way we've addressed that is looking for alternative forms of assurance. There are third parties you can leverage like UpGuard that can do an assessment on your behalf. You can use trusted auditing organizations that both companies use. That's got quite a high price tag associated. You can look to collect various information from the public, or as Neil suggested, speak directly with their team to capture some information. But a challenge we bump into with the audit is they're looking for copies of artifacts that we can reference. And what we can do in that case is do a complete write-up of the assessment process that you've gone through, what was captured, what was cited, when you met with them, how, and store that as a copy of the document. But fundamentally, if you can't get enough assurance over a particular vendor's security posture, what they're looking for is that you've gone through a risk management process for someone to accept that or to make a plan to mitigate that risk in some way. But formalized acceptance, failing everything else, is really what the auditor is going to be looking for.
Yeah, I guess the vendor's in a bit of a tough situation at the same time, because they've got this, you know, really highly, you know, they have pen tests and they don't want to share that with you. And that's actually, you know, pretty, you'd hope that the vendor wouldn't share everything with you all the time, but at the same time, you do need to see this stuff. So yeah, it's a changing and I guess complex area to navigate. I will jump to another question about the CPS 230 because that was coming up. The question from my end would be, how do you remain compliant with evolving regulations and industry standards? The question from our audience is essentially, can you shed some light on the CPS 230? How are you going to assess those vendors, as you know, the number of vendors may jump depending on how you go forward with your assessment? That's for you, Neil, and obviously Andrew, jump in as well where needed.
I'm popular today, aren't I? Goodness me. So CPS 230, well, for those who are familiar with it, this is the new standard coming out in June 25. We're already preparing, everyone. So what does that look like? We've actually got our internal audit function actually undertaking a review of our landscape against the current draft of 230. We're not expecting any major changes. I think one of the biggies, certainly in the TPRM space, is fourth parties. And you know, being across organizations that your partners use. I've already started in my governance regime, having conversations with my tier 1 and tier 2. So tier 1 being material vendors, tier 2 being our data sitting in their ecosystem. I'm already having those conversations. So we're starting to work towards not contract changes per se, but we are starting to work towards appendices for our contracts around CPS 230. But noting that really it's around your operational risk management. And again, it's just that next level of risk maturity that we are going to. So I often hear a lot of people running around, oh my God, there's going to be so much more work and there's going to be left here and right here. And we have a tendency to get excited. I have a tendency, whilst often very excited, to calm that one and say, well, again, how do we get visibility of fourth parties? If you've got a good relationship already with your partners trust you, and you're building that soft, what I call management skill set with that third party. Bearing in mind, we're all human, guys. You know, we don't bite. By adopting that softer approach, I found what has helped is that, oh, great, okay, Neil, well, what we can do is we can say that these third parties don't have access to your data. Okay, great. I'm going to need that in writing, and I'm going to need, and that's how these conversations unfold. So the already existing governance meetings that I have with my tier 1s and tier 2s, and also we're uplifting our framework as well to incorporate CPS 230, so that come June, we're not getting the, okay, now we've got to do this and we haven't done anything, which is also a risk, of course. But that's what we're doing at this premise. And then, as I say, with our internal audit function playing an integral key part, that will also provide that independent assurance back to APRA that we're being proactive around the management of CPS 230. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Andrew, I'm just noting that we've got about 5 to 10 minutes left. Did you have anything to add to that one, Andrew, the CPS 230?
No, I don't think so. I think Neil's approach fairly well covered it. And I stepped away as we were commencing our CPS 230 journey, so I'll abstain from adding any further commentary.
Lucky you, right?
I was just going to say, you lucky soul, Andrew.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, guys. We've got a couple of questions here just on opportunities. So any key opportunities that you've leveraged when scaling your TPRM? I'm thinking things about AI and automation to make things quicker, you know, that education to reduce the likelihood of, you know, incident relating to human error, SOPs to, you know, create quicker processes, or anything that you'd like to call out. Maybe I'll jump to Shahn there, because there's been a lot of APRA discussion, and that's not relevant to you. So you might have some more thoughts on the AI automation piece.
Yeah, so with automation, it's all about.
Just a second there, Shahn. It might be a bit of an issue with your audio. Did you want to test?
Number 2, is this way?
Oh, no, that's not sounding great, actually. I'm not sure what's happened there. Perhaps connecting to your computer audio. But while you are doing that, I'll jump back again to Andrew.
I've
And then
already
you,
talked
Neil,
about a
of
few
course.
things in
Yep.
this space around hooking into existing processes and algorithmic approach to drive the order rating of risk systems. There is simply just using the tools that you have, whether it's SharePoint workflows, Planner, Excel, whatever you have available to you to try to automate and handle and manage the process overall. I can't say that I've leveraged too much AI at the moment. I had an experiment where I wanted AI to describe a list of vendors and didn't do an especially great job. But it does look like it's going to be a promising area to quickly get across a large pool of companies at some point in the future.
Yeah, it's a tool that we can use. Neil, do you want to jump in? I know you've got some thoughts on that
Yeah,
one.
sure. I mean, again, similar to Andrew, but we have had our own, what I would call, challenges around AI. As a technologist, heart in my heart, love it with a vengeance. You know, so many opportunities for, you know, improvements across whatever it might be. Having said that, though, there's also quite substantial risk if one's not careful. Now, whilst I love automation, Sky, you would know actually as a use case of our UpGuard, I suppose, getting better and better as we move forward. I didn't understand the platform in its entirety, the automation, and we didn't check the right box. And the next minute, our partners were getting automated questionnaires. Oh my goodness me, never a positive outcome. So there I had to go with tail between legs and go, I'm terribly sorry, guys, for these random emails that you've just got. Hold the fort. So that's what I'm talking about, automation, AI, whatever it may be. My ethos to life is, you know, we set up a center of excellence and then we grow that out. So in essence, with AI, I'd like to test within a very small nucleus, and then we can then roll out progressively. But I am glad to report that we already have AI as part of our acceptable use policy, and we also have AI guidelines that we have now created for our organization. So that will give our organization the suitable information whilst we grapple with the technology behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a changing technology as well. Cool. Okay, so Shahn, did you have anything to add to that before I just wrap things up? Not sure.
Yeah, is mic working better?
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah, so it's looking for the automation benefits you can, you know, going back to what we talked about earlier in terms of identifying what tier your vendor is and what path they can go through and how quickly you can automate and get the information you require to make the correct risk decisions and, you know, enable the business to move faster. So some of that can be handled by automation. Some of it will require AI to handle some of the more complex tasks, but it's just understanding what that's assessing for your business. So if you look at look at the aviation industry, you know, you wouldn't kind of feel comfortable with AI making safety decisions, for example. So that kind of state will stay people centric, whereas areas about, you know, software software as a service, those productivity tools that may not be as high a risk, that's something which you can do with AI a lot easier.
Good point. Some things do need that human intervention. All right, thank you, everybody. That is it for the discussion here. We have answered the community questions already, so thank you to the audience too. It's been a pleasure chatting with you all. To our audience, if you are an UpGuard user, you can stay tuned for the next session to hear about our roadmap, what's coming up. Just head back to Stages, select the 2024 product roadmap stage to join that one. And to everybody else joining today, I would recommend you joining the speed networking via the networking function on the left side of your screen to continue the conversation and connect with your peers. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to our panelists, especially. Really appreciate your time, and really hope to see everybody at the next summit. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.